So yes, in this video, I plan to woman-splain toxic masculinity. Just kidding. Kinda. Maybe. Keep watching and we'll see. Hello, Starlets. I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome. Be sure you like and subscribe if you enjoy this video. I want to talk about a topic that I have been wanting to talk about for a very long time, and that is the topic of toxic masculinity. I feel like it's talked about so much, but I get really frustrated because I feel like everybody thinks it's something different and people make up their own explanations for it, and to be honest with you, I'm gonna make up my own explanation for it, but it's my channel so I can do that, right? Right. But I did do a post quite a while back on Instagram explaining what I thought the difference was between masculinity and toxic masculinity, and it actually got a lot of really great feedback. So because it's a topic that comes up in the media a lot lately, I really wanted to sit down and make a video and actually talk about toxic masculinity. So before I dive into that, I actually did do a video on masculine and feminine energies and what they are, and I highly encourage you to watch that video even before you watch this one, because it will help explain a little bit more of the perspective I come from as far as dealing with the masculine and the feminine energies, and how it's not necessarily about gender. I don't want to dig into that too much in this video because I don't want this video to kind of get off track and become about something else. However, I do want to just give a brief rundown in case you just completely ignore the other video and you are watching this and you're going, what is she talking about? Just a general overview. Masculine and feminine energies are energies that are within all of us. They don't actually have a gender to them. They are energies that we can all tap into. However, we all have a core energy. Some people actually have a balanced core energy, but for the most part, people either usually have a masculine or feminine core. Sometimes and often that matches up with your gender. It doesn't always. So that said, I want to get into the very controversial topic of toxic masculinity. And hopefully I haven't already lost you, because I have heard that there are a lot of men who the minute they hear the term toxic masculinity, they tune out. And I'm really hoping that that hasn't happened yet, because I do really think this is an important message for both men and women. Masculine, feminine, whatever you want to call it, people, all humans. I guess pets maybe, but I don't know if they'd understand this. Maybe your pet will, I don't know. But before I get too far into toxic masculinity and what it is, I want to make it very clear what toxic masculinity isn't. For one, toxic masculinity is not a war on masculinity. It is not saying that masculinity is bad. Now, are there some people who scream about toxic masculinity and think that like all men are evil or think that all masculinity is bad? Yes, there are people like that. And there are people who I think may even think that that's a thing, but I'm willing to bet anything. I don't really have much, so I can't really bet much money. I'm not really a gambler. But anyway, I'm willing to bet that if you actually sat down a feminine cored being, someone who is in a healthy connection with their feminine, and you actually explained what a healthy masculine being was, or what healthy masculine energy was, they would probably get so turned on you wouldn't even be able to finish talking, right? Because healthy masculinity is super appealing. It's sexy to a feminine being, right? So healthy masculine energy is actually really good. So when people talk about toxic masculinity, it is not saying that masculinity is bad. Masculinity as well as femininity are actually kind of essential for the continuation of the species, so and society and everything. They're both essential, and they're actually both equally essential. They're different, but they're both equally essential. However, toxic masculinity is something a little bit different. It's not that masculinity is bad. It's basically a situation where masculinity has taken a dark turn. We'll put it that way. And I'll get into more of what it is a little bit later. The next point that I want to make out about what The next point that I want to make about what toxic masculinity is not is it is not gender specific. And this is actually something that I don't find many people are talking about, and I really think that we should. Because we all contain masculine and feminine energies within us, we can all have a healthy connection to our masculine and a healthy connection to our feminine, and we can have an unhealthy connection to our masculine and an unhealthy connection to our feminine. That's a tongue twister. That said, I hear a lot of people, when you bring up toxic masculinity, a lot of people who are offended by that term are like, what about toxic femininity? And I do hear people reference toxic femininity, and because that comes up so much, I'm going to get into toxic femininity much deeper later in the video, so be sure you stay tuned. But I want to touch on the fact that a woman displaying toxically masculine traits is not a toxically feminine woman. Toxic femininity is different than toxic masculinity. And I'm going to say something that is very radical, and I do not hear a lot of people saying this, and I think more people should say it because it's a reality. Women can be toxically masculine. Okay, men can be toxically feminine as well. You know, we all have that ability within us, and I think that that's something that we don't talk about in our society. There are a few different reasons why I think we don't talk about that. Some is because it's not necessarily considered politically correct. You know, some, you know, maybe because a woman being in a toxically masculine state in general doesn't seem as frightening or intimidating, or hasn't been made frightening and intimidating by society as much as the toxically masculine male. I think that there's a lot of reasons why we could dig into why we don't talk about that, but we don't talk about it, and it is a reality. There are toxically masculine women out there, you know, and it's as unhealthy as a toxically masculine male. So it's not gender specific, and we're gonna get into toxic femininity later in the video, because I know people want to talk about that because I feel like it comes up so much, right? Another thing that toxic masculinity is not, it's not like a disease or an illness or something. It's not like someone is born and they're like, boom, you're toxically masculine, right? Toxic masculinity is a behavior that is, I mean, there's some arguments that it's ancestral, so I guess you could say maybe some people are born into it. But it has more to do with being, you know, either coming from a trauma in life, just from an upbringing of having toxically masculine role models, from society. There's different things that can contribute to toxic masculine behavior. But a person being toxically masculine, it's not like a diagnosis. It's not like you're toxically masculine, so that's who you are, and that's the end of it, right? And it's also not necessarily like a permanent state. It's something that's fluid. I mean, there are people out there, men or women, that are just constantly in a state of being in a toxically masculine or an unhealthy masculine state, so that's how they react to everything. I don't think that that's the majority of people. But I think most people have the potential to, in certain circumstances, you know, that, you know, the unhealthy side of your masculinity can come out in a certain situation, and then you can then become toxically masculine in that particular situation. But like, if you are, just because you do that, it doesn't mean like you're forever toxically masculine, you're done, it's over, bye-bye, you should just be voted off the island or whatever. I don't know. Another thing toxic masculinity is not, is it really has nothing to do with your physical appearance. Which I think is something that we kind of, I don't know, our society is very physical appearance based. We tend to judge people really quickly on their physical appearance, and I don't think that's always necessarily a terrible thing, because in some circumstances it's a survival skill. If you see someone who looks like they are threatening, you want to protect yourself, you know, but it really doesn't have anything to do with how you dress, or you know, it's not like, oh, if you're a guy who drives a pickup truck, you must be a chauvinist, or, you know, and there are a lot of women, I can think of some celebrities who are, you know, on the surface as women, they have a visual sort of look to them that is highly feminine, but they actually behave in very toxically masculine ways. So, you know, you can't, I mean, there was a whole thing, I mean, this is probably gonna be a controversial thing, but like, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this was there was the photo spread with Harry Styles, who was in a dress, I think it was Vanity Fair, and they were talking about ending toxic masculinity. I didn't read the article. I know it was really controversial. A lot of people were talking about it. You know, yeah, Harry Styles was wearing a dress. I don't know Harry Styles at all. I don't know him personally. I don't really know him much as a pop culture icon. I'm a little bit older than his generation, so I don't really know anything about what he's like in real life. But the reality is, on that photo shoot where he was a man, he's a male, he's a gendered male, wearing a dress, he could have 100% acted like a toxically masculine man on that photo shoot. Maybe he didn't, I don't know. The only people who know are the people who are there, right? But at the end of the day, just because a man puts a dress on, it doesn't necessarily take away any toxic masculinity or any unhealed or wounded masculinity that is in him. Now, is it likely that you're gonna have, you know, men walking around in dresses and they're gonna be acting, you know, in a macho kind of way? Statistically, it's probably not likely, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't have anything to do with what you're wearing. And I, you know, just, you know, if you just start telling men that they have to wear dresses, thinking that they're gonna then stop acting in unhealthy ways, that's not gonna work, you know, because it's just a dress. You know, clothing, as much as I love clothing, it comes off, it goes on, it's not something that's permanent. So you cannot judge whether or not somebody is toxically masculine. You know, if a guy is wearing a leather jacket and a gold chain, or driving a pickup truck and wearing cowboy boots, you can't just be like, oh, he's toxically masculine. That's that. It doesn't work like that. The same way as you can't look at a woman who may be highly feminine and assume that she has a great connection to her feminine, or is not a toxically masculine person. It really doesn't have anything to do with the outer surface stuff. It's stuff that's more internal. Another thing that toxic masculinity is not is it's not men just being gentlemen. And this is something that really pisses me off. Like, really pisses me off. And I'm talking to women out there. When a man is being a gentleman, if he holds the door for you, if he offers to carry your stuff, you don't have to let him. I mean, if you really are like, I'm uncomfortable with this guy, you know, offering to carry my stuff, and you're like, I don't want that, you have a right to decline. But like, don't shame a guy for being a gentleman, because we can't shame men. And I'm talking to women, I'm talking to feminine beings out there. We cannot shame men for acting like gentlemen and then turn around and be like, where are all the good men? Because I'm pissed off, because I want there to be more good men, and I feel like a lot of women are shaming them. And I'm like, I would like more men to hold the door for me. I would like more men to be gentlemen. I'm just, oh, I get so angry with this. Stop shaming men for being gentlemen, please. I'm begging you, stop that. Just don't. I'm not at all telling you, like, if you feel uncomfortable with a guy, that you should talk to him or you should have anything to do with him. If a guy really makes you uncomfortable, go with your gut. You know, as women, we have to be safe. But like, don't shame a guy for just trying to do something nice. A man holding a door for you is not him being like, clearly you can't handle this door yourself, let me be a big strong man and hold the door. No, he's trying to hold the door for you. Just let him hold the door for you. Okay, so that's just, sorry, rant over. I had to get that out of my system. Whew, I get heated. Okay, anyway. Oh. So now that we've talked about what toxic masculinity is not, I want to talk to you about what toxic masculinity is. And yes, I'm going to woman-splain this for you. Just kidding. I know the men watching are all super smart. So what toxic masculinity is, and I know a lot of people don't like that term, but you can call it a lot of different things. If you don't like toxic masculinity, you can call it wounded masculinity, unhealed masculinity, unhealthy masculinity. It's basically when masculinity has taken a horrible turn and gone wrong, likely to the dark side. And again, I have another video about what masculinity and femininity is as far as energies go, so I'm not going to delve too far deep into that, but it's really any time that a masculine trait then it goes wrong and it tends to become harmful to other people. I use the example of, I don't remember his name, but there was a little boy who was in the news a while back. He was actually really badly injured by a dog. And apparently the situation was the dog was about to attack his little sister, and he threw himself in between his sister and the dog attacked him, and basically he did it to save his sister's life. Now, he was a very young boy, but I would say that that is pure masculinity at its very purest form. Basically, it is the drive to protect, to protect those that you love who are smaller and weaker. So that, to me, is the very definition of what a healthy masculine energy is. It's that energy to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Now, on the flip side, if you have another little boy, say, who likes to beat up his sister, abuse her, or, you know, verbally maybe even, or physically or something, because it makes him feel like a big strong man type of thing, that is when masculinity becomes toxic. It is when that need to protect those who are smaller or weaker then flips to, I need to attack those who are smaller and weaker to make myself feel more important. It's the classic bully. That's essentially what it is. It's the classic bully. It's the classic, bullies don't pick on those who are stronger than them. They don't, because that's just not how it works. Bullies pick on those who are weaker to make themselves feel stronger. That's toxically masculine behavior. And that happens in men and women. We see it. We see bullies in men and women. It's any time that you feel a need to attack in any way, and it could be physically, it could be verbally, it could be just degrading somebody. Anytime you feel a need to sort of tear someone down, particularly someone who is, you know, smaller or weaker or at some kind of a disadvantage, because you know it's an easy target, and to make yourself feel more important, because healthy masculine wants to protect. That's their drive. So that to me is an example, and it's probably the most common example, I would say, of toxic masculine behavior. Now, another aspect of a healthy masculine is having a passion and purpose. It's having a drive, a passion to do something. And in most cases, and I would say that a healthy masculine person, in general, that passion, that purpose tends to be for a greater good. You know, and what that greater good is, and, you know, how far that, whether it's the greater good of just your family, or the greater good of, you know, your country, or the greater good of the world, or the planet, or the universe, or whatever it is, it tends to be for a greater good, you know, no matter what that looks like. You know, not everybody would always agree that what the person is doing is necessarily for the greater good. It could be something controversial. But in the person's mind, in their actions, they are doing things for the purpose of making something in the world better. I would say that a toxically masculine person, or wounded or unhealed, or whatever you want to call it, would be somebody whose purpose, whose drive was actually for destruction, was for pain, was for harm, was for destroying something. And I know that can be a little bit controversial, because in some cases you have to destroy things in order to make things better. That is a little bit controversial, I will acknowledge. You know, some of this stuff can be a little bit subjective, but in general, it's the person, it's the masculine being, it's the masculine energy. It's where it's coming from. Is it coming from a place of wanting things to be better, or is it coming from a place of wanting to harm things? Which again comes back to the bully thing. I think it just is more maybe a bullying on a larger scale, like you're trying to bully the world or something like that. So that's generally speaking, and I'm sure that there are probably a million examples, and we could probably delve into a ton more, but in general, that is what toxic masculinity means to me, and it's my channel, so that's what it means in this video. Okay, so let's talk about toxic femininity, because I do feel like that's the big argument that everybody uses. Well, why does nobody talk about toxic femininity? And like I said earlier, toxic femininity is not just when a woman displays toxically masculine traits. I would still consider her to be toxically masculine if that is what she's doing. Toxic femininity, or wounded femininity, or unhealed femininity, or whatever it is that you want to call it, in general, tends to show up as more self-destructive. It tends to show up as more addictions, self-harm, eating disorders, isolation. It can come from sexual repression, although it can also come from an unhealthy promiscuity. I'm not like slut shaming or anything like that. I'm just saying that, you know, promiscuity can be done in a healthy way, and it can be done in an unhealthy way. A woman in her toxic femininity may do it in more of an unhealthy way, in a sense where she may, you know, put herself in situations where she could be harmed, or, you know, not a healthy expression of sexuality. It becomes more of a, again, self-destructive kind of behavior. And toxic femininity can happen in men as well as women. I know from my own personal experience and a lot of the worlds that I've been in, I've known a lot of men who are in a heavy toxically feminine situation, like really. I see it a lot. So it's, you know, it's not necessarily that one is better or worse. I mean, obviously self-destructive behavior is bad, and, you know, I think the reason why we don't focus on it as much, part of it is societal, because again, I will acknowledge this may trigger some people, but it is actually, it's considered more acceptable to criticize men than it is to criticize women. It is. I have a video planned where I want to talk about that, and as far as the entertainment business and how that's been represented in the media and stuff. So if you guys want to see that, let me know, thumbs up. But yeah, but that just kind of is what it is in society right now. You know, you can say it's right or wrong, but you know, it is more acceptable in society to criticize men than it is to criticize women. But also if you're watching in America or any other sort of free society, particularly in America, we have a system where we believe in, as of now, we believe in personal freedom and, you know, personal choice, and the laws exist when that personal choice then disrupts somebody else. So with toxic femininity, it tends to be less outwardly noticeable. People can actually, because it's more internal and it's more self-harming, it's not as outwardly noticeable, but it also, I mean, it obviously, addictions and things affect other people, but it's less of an immediate effect to other people, as opposed to in a toxic masculine situation where there's actual, like, abuse or something like that. It's much more visible, and it's something that's sort of easier to make laws around and things like that. So I think that's why we see more talk about toxic masculinity, because again, it is something that is more visual. It is something that is more it's more of an outward expression as opposed to like an inward harm. So that's why I believe we talk more about toxic masculinity. It doesn't mean that toxic femininity isn't very destructive, particularly to the person who is toxically feminine, but it is also for society. In both cases, unhealed masculine or feminine is really bad for society, because societies and the world and the universe does its best when the masculine and the feminine are healed and in alignment with each other. So where do we go from here? For my feminine beings out there, I would say the best thing that you can do to counteract toxic masculinity and toxic femininity, either one, the best thing that you can do is to work on yourself, to find a healthy balance. Doesn't have to be an even balance if you're a feminine core being. You know, obviously you're probably primarily going to be in your feminine energy, which means you want to have a healthy relationship with your feminine energy. But you also want to have a healthy relationship with your own masculine energy, and you also want to do some work on being comfortable with the healthy feminine energy and not just assuming that all men are jerks. And I realize that could be difficult at times, but you know, we do, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in the media. I think it gets kind of ingrained in us. There's, you know, so many, there's so much out there that makes women fear men, and in some cases, rightly so. But I think it's just so important. So I think if you want to work on, if you're a feminine being and you want to, you know, save the world from toxic masculinity, I think it starts with yourself, and I think it starts with working on yourself. I think if you're in a situation where you're dealing with toxic masculinity, I think it's just super important that you own your boundaries. You know your boundaries, and understand your boundaries, and you express your boundaries. You know, if it's a situation where you feel like you're not being respected or you're being harmed or any way, you know, I would highly urge you to do what you can to get out of that situation. I know that that's not always easy, but, you know, reach out to somebody, reach out to get help, because we all deserve to be around people who are healthy and treat us with the respect that we deserve. So yeah, that's my suggestion for feminine beings. For masculine beings, if you are listening to this and you're like, oh no, I'm toxically masculine, you probably stopped listening a long time ago, because I probably said something that pissed you off. So, or maybe you're just waiting for me to take my top off, and that's why you've stayed. So anyway, welcome. First of all, if you're a masculine being and you are watching this and you're like, oh no, I don't know if I'm toxically masculine or if I'm not, how do I know? Whatever. I would honestly urge you, first of all, nobody's perfect. None of us are going to be perfect all the time. So, I mean, you know, provided that your accident isn't like, oh my God, I accidentally got so mad that I just punched out my coworker or something. That's probably a big mistake. But I would say in general, if you know in your heart that what you're doing is coming from a place of respect, of, you know, I use the word love, you know, I don't mean like you have to be in love with everybody that you deal with, but it's coming from a good place. If you are holding the door for a woman because you want to do something nice for another human, you know, even if you're at work, I know there's a lot of stuff, even mansplaining, I've not joked about womansplaining, but even mansplaining, I think in general, sometimes it can come from a genuine place of you guys are just trying to explain something, you know what I mean? And I feel like if you're doing it and you know that you're doing it from a place of, I just really want to get my point across and I want to make sure this person understands what I'm saying, if they get offended or whatever, that's probably them, and that's on them, and you can only control other people and their reactions so much, you know, but ask yourself. And if you're like, you know what, hey, I was kind of doing that because I wanted to make myself seem like I was smarter than them or more important than them, notice it. Noticing it is the first step to, you know, understanding that. And if you start noticing a pattern and you start paying attention to a pattern and being like, hey, I'm doing some stuff that's kind of making me into a jerk here, you know, then that's when you want to start working on maybe healing. And again, it's not your fault. Like if a man out there is toxically masculine, it's not necessarily like, I don't necessarily believe that, you know, blame and shame really works. I don't think it really is productive in any way, shape, or form. The same way I don't believe that, you know, like fat shaming or anything like that. Like I don't believe that stuff works. You know, shaming someone for being toxically masculine or toxically feminine or anything like that really doesn't, it doesn't help the situation. And particularly you know, not shaming yourself. So, you know, a lot of toxic masculinity, it comes from society. It comes from, you know, not really having a great set of healthy masculine role models in our society. And, you know, if you want to change that, I mean, if you're a man out there and you're looking for a passion and purpose, you know, being a healthy, healed masculine being to be a good role model for the next generation of masculine beings, I can't think of a better purpose. I really can't. Like, I don't think that there is one. So maybe potato farmer, because French fries are always the right answer. But yeah, it's off on my own tangent. Anyway, clearly I have some toxic femininity traits in me. So I'm thinking about food right now. I'm not an expert on healing the masculine by any means. I wanted to talk about this because I think it's an important topic. I'm not the here-all end-all in how to solve this problem, but I think if we're not on the same page with talking about things, and we're not on the same page with what things mean or what's good and what's bad, then I just think we can't ever progress. I do want to point you out to a few resources that I think could be very helpful you know, for feminine beings as well, because I've read these books and, you know, followed some of this stuff, and I found it really helpful, particularly for masculine beings, or if you are a feminine being and you have a masculine being in your life that, you know, is interested in this kind of stuff. A few books I would highly recommend. One is The Way of the Superior Man. Highly, highly recommend this book. I found this book eye-opening for me. First of all, I picked it up and it said The Way of the Superior Man. I was hoping there'd be a map in here with directions so I could find one. Unfortunately, there's not. But I do highly recommend this book. I, as a feminine chord being, I learned so much about the feminine just from reading about the masculine, so I highly recommend this book to everyone, but particularly for masculine beings. I also highly recommend this book, which I read. Wasn't quite as I didn't like delve into it quite as deeply as this, but I did really enjoy this book, and I think this breaks down a lot of stuff about the like masculine archetypes and stuff like really well. It's called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. Highly recommend it. I also, I'm gonna list in the description box below some, I don't know a lot of people that do a lot of work with masculine energy healing, because that's just not, I'm not a masculine chord being, so I don't know a lot of people, but if you are someone who does that kind of work or knows of someone who does that kind of work, definitely leave a comment, let me know. But I'm gonna try to leave some recommendations of like podcasts and Instagram handles and stuff like that in the description box, so be sure you check that out. So yeah, if you guys are still with me and you're still watching this, thank you so much for being here. This is actually something that I have been wanting to talk about for a while, and I have a lot of videos kind of in this sort of realm of talking about the masculine and the feminine. I also have some beauty videos that I'm in my brain thinking about and stuff, so so yeah, I have some content that I'm hoping to start creating soon. So if you enjoy this type of content on my channel, please let me know. Leave a comment below, thumbs up, share the video, everything. It really helps to grow my channel, and with all the algorithm changes and all that kind of stuff, it's hard out here for a influencer. So yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure you subscribe to my channel, and you can check me out on Instagram. All my information will be in the description box below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.